Hey there friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andy and today I thought we should talk a bit about humankind. Now, what is humankind, you ask? Despite the species of people which may or may not exterminate itself by its own actions in the coming century? Well, I'm glad you asked. Humankind is perhaps the biggest and the most anticipated strategy game of 2021 and one of the only true new challengers to the ancient civilization series, which in my mind has stagnated somewhat. If you're into these sort of games, you may already have seen that content creators have been putting out tons and tons of videos of the game already, even though it doesn't release before August 17th. However, since I am not but a lowly YouTuber, I have not had the chance to play Humankind yet, but I have made myself some thoughts on it, which, as an experienced strategy gamer with a certain amount of love for the genre, I thought I would share with you. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, I hope you leave a like and a comment down below, and share your hopes or fears for Humankind in the comment section. I have a few reasons why I'm so excited for Humankind, but first, let's talk about what Humankind actually is. Humankind is a completely new strategy game series in the 4X genre, where you explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Yeah, sounds good, doesn't it? Not problematic at all. Either way, we're talking strategy games here, so unless you're playing My First Carcassonne, you're gonna have to exterminate some peoples. And you'll find it gets more enjoyable and less difficult to hear the screams of your enemies every time, so it's all in good fun. Anyway, as opposed to, for example, Total War games, which combines a pre-made map with pre-made factions and real-time battles, or the Paradox games where you also get pre-made maps and factions on a real-time grand strategy map, 4X games are usually much more interactive from the viewpoint of the player. The maps can be randomly generated, so that you never have to play on the same map twice if you don't want to. Resources are placed in different locations every time, so you never know exactly where to look until you've explored your map. And perhaps most importantly, the factions, even though we usually do get handed a number of them, like the historical rulers like Saladin or Basil II, they are very moldable. This means that your faction changes and develops based on your actions, meaning that any faction is able to build any historical monument in their lands, giving them various bonuses as long as they get to build them first, or capture them later on. Researching technology is also a big part of any strategy game, but as opposed to Total War or Paradox games where the main point of victory is basically total domination of your enemies, 4X games lets you win by several routes, like achieving a cultural victory, a religious victory, a technological victory, or indeed victory by military conquest. This system has been the basis of the civilization games forever, but sadly, the series has in my opinion become somewhat stagnant. It's neither as complex or mature as I would like, nor has it really tried to spice up the formula by introducing revolutionary mechanics or changes which demand time and effort to learn. This stands in stark contrast to the Paradox games, whose games change rather drastically with every new release, and mostly for the better. In my opinion, the reason for this is that Civilization hasn't really had a good competitor in its particular space of strategy. Like the Total War series, who's kind of experiencing the same monopoly, Civilization has in my opinion become kind of lazy, almost settling with rehashing the old or introducing the incremental changes instead of big ones. This is why I'm so excited for Humankind, because it's actually one of the only, if not the only strategy game in the 4X space which has gotten this much attention in a very long time. And my hopes for this game is that it will innovate where Civilization has stagnated. Now with that out of the way, here are my top reasons for being excited for Humankind, which releases in less than a week. Reason number 1. Faction development heaven. One of the best things about any strategy game is that it allows you to develop your faction over time, more or less historically of course. In Total War games, this means researching new technologies or perhaps opening up reforms which nets you new soldiers or infrastructure. In Civilization, this is mostly done by being the first faction to acquire buildings which give your faction amazing bonuses, but I do believe Humankind takes faction development to a whole new level. And the reason for this is its faction sandbox system, where you begin as early as in the Neolithic period, essentially beginning as farmers in this period, which in English translates to the New Stone Age. Since no modern or ancient nation has formed yet, faction development is completely up to you, and as you progress throughout the ages, you get to choose what culture or nation to become once certain conditions are met. And as long as you're the first one to get to this point, of course. Others might come before you. But it doesn't stop there. What's perhaps even more awesome is the fact that your faction will continue to develop, and at each next major step in development, you will once again have the ability to choose to adopt a new culture or take your current one to the next level by ascending. Doing so will grant you or forfeit certain faction bonuses, in addition to changing how your buildings look, going from an older to an even more modern or culturally specific look. Now, I am personally a historical player first and foremost, but I do find this concept to be extremely intriguing. I think it sounds like the player will have a lot of room to play with, and that a system such as this will allow for a completely unique playthrough with actual major differences every time. There's actually a total of 60 cultures present in the game, but since we can mix and match, your civilization will always be unique to you. And you can even design the look of your ruler, which is a very cool touch, might I add. Moving on to reason number 2, a user interface made with passion. One of those things I somewhat dislike about Civilization is the user interface, mainly because it looks so modern and simplified that it doesn't really look tailor-made to take you into the designated time period. And even though Humankind's interface shares many similarities with Civilization's, I really feel the designers have done some really beautiful changes. And what I'm specifically referring to here is the concept art found everywhere within the game. Just look at these beautifully painted cultural change cards, which shows us exactly the vibe and the uniqueness of the culture we can move on to. But it's not only there we see this passion present. Humankind also delivers hand-drawn unicards, which are just as beautiful as we could hope. Or what about the event images, which are based on the same style and feel? Even the tech tree provides us with gorgeous visuals, making the UI as uniform and beautiful as can be in terms of immersive art. I really love this aspect, as event art is one of the most important ways to show the player which culture they belong to in any strategy game. Then we have reason number 3, our campaign visuals. One thing I generally disliked about Civilization 6 were the cartoonish graphics. Although it looked fairly pretty, I never really managed to shake the feeling that this was a game made to appeal to kids rather than someone who wanted a more realistic feel. Well, Humankind does something similar, but makes just enough important changes for me to potentially love it. You see, Humankind's campaign map is colorful, but what I love about the campaign map is that it doesn't seem afraid to play with scale. The map looks genuinely massive, with your city stretching more or less organically across the lands as you develop. I absolutely adore this aspect, and since there are so many different types of biomes and landscape types, I'm really excited to see how cities and civilizations will look in different types of nature. We even have animals walking across the map as we play, and the costumes worn by our rulers change as time goes on. In terms of visuals then, Humankind looks like a real step up from Civilization 6, especially in terms of how it plays with scale and vastness of your empire. So, there you have it. I think Humankind looks very promising indeed, especially because we're finally getting a real challenger to the Civilization series, which has dominated this genre for long enough. Now if we only got a challenger to the Total War series, that would be great too. Are you excited for Humankind? How do you like what you've seen so far? And do you have concerns I haven't talked about maybe? Or might there be other strategy games you're more excited for? Did you perhaps love Civilization 6 and hate me for talking smack? If so, please let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I do. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!